Wow, oh, it's new and beautiful. Looks like a nice, usable house. This is our cherished new home, meticulously planned and built by my husband and me, a newly married couple. It was our parents-in-law, both of them, who carelessly dropped their muddy, old suitcase right in the middle of our meticulously cleaned living room. To our surprise, they were moving from today. They announced they lived with us. I was shocked and confronted my husband. Why is this happening without any discussion? Don't worry, my mom's here to help with the housework, right? We'll get used to it soon, and supporting each other as a family is what matters. There's no problem. My husband, heavily influenced by his parents, didn't seem to consider my refusal at all. He grew up in a grand, old American-style house, and frankly, he has always seen the role of a wife as nothing more than a convenient housekeeper. A viewpoint shared by his parents. I had endured weekly dinners at their house, where my father-in-law would openly call me a disobedient woman. Furthermore, we were short on rooms, so my husband ordered me to vacate mine. "You can sleep in the yard, it's lucky for you since you won't have to deal with my parents," he said with a smirk. Holding back my tears, I rushed into my room. And then, when I returned, dragging a heavy suitcase just as burdensome as my in-laws, my husband and his parents were shocked. I announced loudly, "I'm going back to my parents' house, enjoy yourselves." I am Mirabelle. Currently, I work in the product development department of a health food company. I'm 32, and my husband, Tom, also 32, works in the sales department of the same company. Tom is a very thoughtful person, a hidden gem in any team he joins, always playing a supportive role. He's a top performer in our department, a husband I'm proud of. Our first meeting was at a departmental mixer. Dressed up, I caught his attention with the antique ring on my little finger. He was intrigued by my hobby of collecting antique jewelry. He admitted to thinking rings were just flashy, gem-studded pieces from his family's collection, so I introduced him to more vintage designs. Soon, we started going out for meals after work and on weekends, quickly progressing to a relationship, followed by a proposal in less than 6 months, celebrated by many colleagues and superiors. We had a dream even before marriage. Building our own home. Our goal was to contribute equally, take out a loan, and create a small but detailed home of our own. I'd like a spacious living room, maybe a yard, thinking of kids and pets in the future. We might not have a big budget, but I'll work harder than ever, save more, do whatever it takes. We had many requests about the house. We have a certain location in mind, but we need to decide on the land based on transportation, shopping, imagine when we have children, the design of the exterior, and other points that each of us has that we can't miss. We had meticulously planned and worked tirelessly with a design firm to create our dream home. Though the plot was introduced by a real estate agent near my parents' house, they are quite kind and won't trouble you. No worries, they were nice during our visit. But your mom's cooking skills are a bit intimidating. His family used to own a lot of land in the area. Now mostly sold off, except for their residents. Luckily, due to these connections, we got priority in securing our plot. Since we searched through connections, the location ended up being a plot close to my in-laws' house. I didn't have many opportunities to meet my in-laws outside of formal greetings. Because of this, I felt the need to be cautious and was quite nervous about how to interact with them. However, my in-laws always seemed cheerful and kind, and they appeared genuinely happy whenever I visited. My father-in-law was the breadwinner with a strong sense of responsibility, and my mother-in-law was a dedicated homemaker. When they heard about our plans for a new home, they were excited and supportive, and I thought they were wonderful parents-in-law. As our house plans progressed to the construction phase, my husband and I decided to visit his parents' house. Their house was nearby, though not next door. We wanted to make a good impression early on. Their house was a large, traditional American-style home. And I was always overwhelmed by its size. They greeted us with smiles as usual. "Building your own house is a big step, but I'm proud of my son. Our house is old, so a new, clean home is something to admire. Building a house is exciting, isn't it? Mirabelle, we're looking forward to it too. That's how my in-laws both gave me their support. Our current residence was a bit far from there. My husband, Tom, suggested, it's gonna be a while till the house is finished, but how about we spend more time together in the meantime? I readily agreed, of course, let's do that. Tom had a good relationship with his parents, and they were always up to date with his business trips and weekend plans. So, we started getting invited over on weekends that coincided with our days off. The visits were for simple reasons like going to the mall or having meals at their home. However, I felt there was a limit. For example, I would get calls from my mother-in-law on a Friday night saying, "Mirabelle, thank you for the last time. Next time, could you drive us to look for a purse as a gift for a friend? It would be a big help. Also, we're inviting you over for lunch on Sunday. We're getting some nice fish, so bring Tom along. Could you bring a dish? I'm good at fried and stewed dishes and salads, so please bring something else. And about your clothes." She not only talked at length, but also filled up our weekend schedule and made specific requests. I wondered if dealing with in-laws was always this demanding and secretly asked my friends for advice, but all I got were comments blaming the oddity of my in-laws. I began to dread visiting them and felt increasingly trapped. As my work in the product development department got busier and the frequent visits to my in-laws' house fueled my mistrust. One day, I mustered the courage to decline over the phone. "I feel bad visiting so often, and I also want to have some quiet time on the weekends. I'm embarrassed to say, but with work, I can hardly keep up with chores at home." I tried to deflect the conversation, but my mother-in-law was unyielding. Insisting, "Don't be shy, we're family now," and I couldn't escape that weekend's plans. Reluctantly, I went to my in-laws' house with a heavy heart. To make matters worse, my husband knew I had tried to decline the invitation. Throughout the car ride, he scolded me. Mom was sad, Dad might say something, blaming me. At their house, with dishes spread across the dining table, the topic came up again. I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. Then my father-in-law pointed at my mother-in-law and said, "Why don't you go help out? It's not too much for her. That would be too much for Mom." "That's not a problem. She can just finish the housework during the week and then come clean up your apartment. She's a homemaker, after all, she's got free time." I was surprised by his suggestion and even more so by his tone. His attitude towards my mother-in-law, a homemaker, was filled with misconceptions and harsh assumptions. I was at a loss for words, feeling like he was a boss issuing orders rather than a family member. What was terrifying was that my mother-in-law just smiled and nodded, as if my husband's instructions were the most natural thing in the world. I felt a chill down my spine. Thankfully, I managed to fend off the suggestion that she take over our household chores. In stark contrast to her compliance, my repeated refusals made my father-in-law mutter, "What a disobedient daughter-in-law." I could feel my irritation rising, and my heart raced. My father-in-law quickly became sullen, and my mother-in-law scrambled to cater to his needs. The tension in the air was suffocating, and I quietly resolved to stop visiting my in-laws. The following week, when my mother-in-law called, I tried to excuse myself, saying, "I have other plans and can't come." If the new house was completed and they had to live near their in-laws, they would have had to see each other every day, not just every week off. The horrible thought filled me with dread. Why not? Haven't you finished your chores? Maybe it would have been better if I had helped out, like my husband suggested. She persisted, but I had my response ready. "I have plans with a friend who attended our wedding. We're going out as a thank you. So, I can't come today, but I'll visit when our schedules align. I'll make sure to convey my thanks to my friend." I rattled off my excuse and managed to end the call. The promise was a lie, but feeling unsafe at home, I quickly left. From that day on, I found excuses to avoid visiting my in-laws. Despite this strained relationship, our new home was completed. My husband, Tom, and I were thrilled with our sparkling new house and took great care in cleaning every corner. However, not even half a month after moving in, my mother-in-law summoned me unexpectedly. Her tone was serious. "It's something I must tell you. I know you don't plan to come to our house on your days off, but this is something I just have to tell you." "Okay, I'll come right over," I replied, though it pained me to do so. Rushing over, I found my mother-in-law eager to explain the household chores at her home. The basics are daily sweeping of the entrance and garden. Normally it's just dry wiping, but on weekends we do a thorough mopping. Plus, there's shopping and managing the household budget. "Oh, you can change things to suit you." She smiled kindly, but I was baffled by her explanation. It was as if she was discussing how we would share chores if I moved in with them. "Wait a minute. Why are you telling me all this?" I wondered what she expected me to do with this information about cleaning supplies and kitchen use. When I asked, her face clouded over. "You married into our family, Mirabelle, so you need to follow our ways. Don't you know that yet? Don't you want to contribute to your husband's family?" Then she asked, "How long are you planning to keep working?" I was speechless, having had no intention of quitting my job. It seemed she expected me to eventually leave my job, become a homemaker, and help out with their chores. Stunned by this unexpected turn, I firmly stated, "If that's the case, I'm leaving. I understand my duties as a wife and will help out where I can, but my priority is my time with my husband. I have work in our own household chores, so I can't help out here." With that, I left my in-laws' house. I immediately protested to Tom, but he took his parents' side and wouldn't listen. "I didn't marry into this family to do their housework," I said, but he just looked annoyed. "Are you always this selfish? My parents can't be wrong. Can't you get along with them?" I was speechless and could only stare back at him. I was shocked not only by the vast difference in thinking between me and my in-laws but also by my husband Tom's refusal to listen to my views. He's usually not like this, but when it comes to his parents, especially his father, he seems to change completely, adhering to whatever they say as absolute. The decision to build our own home was initially suggested by his father, who wanted to maintain good relations with a real estate agent through purchasing land. The word divorce involuntarily flashed through my mind. But with Tom frequently away on business trips, I was often left alone at home. Plus, there was the fact that we had just built our dream home. I decided to observe the situation a little longer, as long as I could keep a distance from his parents. However, I made it clear to Tom that I didn't want any involvement with his parents. "The relationship with your family is quite different from a normal mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. Honestly, I don't want any more involvement. I won't be visiting your parents' house for chores, and I have no intention of living with them. Please remember that." I expressed this earnestly. I expected him to get angry, but surprisingly, Tom backed down, saying, "Okay, I got it. I'll handle things with my parents from now on." A month later, on a weekend, I was preparing lunch at home. Then Tom, who had been out since morning, returned with multiple voices accompanying him. I was surprised to see my in-laws enter the living room with large bags. "Oh, it's so nice and clean because it's new. It looks like a great, user-friendly house," exclaimed my father-in-law with a loud laugh. Tom seemed proud as he showed them around the living room, carrying heavy luggage like carry-on cases and backpacks. When I confronted him, he began to say something unbelievable. He announced that his parents were moving in with us from today. "What? Why? Without any discussion?" I've been thinking about this for a while. Since Mirabelle doesn't want to deal with my parents, I've been mediating. "Don't worry, my mom's here for the housework, right? We'll get used to it, and it's good to support each other, no problem," he said, as if he never doubted I would welcome living with his parents. I felt a sense of despair. I was foreseeing a difficult life living with in-laws whose perspectives were so different from mine. I was determined to avoid living with them, but apparently, our house and land had already been sold without my knowledge. The preparations for their move were made entirely behind my back. They only brought their immediate belongings, and their larger furniture was stored in a storage unit. I had just told Tom that I wanted to minimize interaction with his parents, and now I felt utterly betrayed. Why did you decide this without telling me? Why proceed unilaterally without any discussion? Don't you consider my feelings? This is about our future life as a family, we should have discussed it together. But Tom was indifferent. He looked at me as if I was a nuisance. But if my parents want to live with us, what can I do? Think of it as a trial period. Since he didn't want to be involved, I handled the sale and the moving preparations. A trial period? The house is already sold, what are you talking about? Doing this behind my back is like a betrayal. Complaining after marrying into the family? You're the wife, show some understanding and patience. This is my house. Tom snapped, his logic baffling me as he raised his voice. I was stunned. I realized that in his eyes, my thoughts and opinions seemed irrelevant. Ignoring me, he began to show his parents upstairs. Our house has 3 private rooms. Tom's study, my room, and our shared bedroom. We had planned to give my room to our future child. Wondering where he was guiding them, my husband then bluntly said to me, "Get your stuff out of the room." I wasn't surprised, but I was visibly upset. My mom will use your room. Dad gets the bedroom. Why don't you sleep in the yard? You don't want to deal with them, right? It was clear that if each of the in-laws were to use a room, there wouldn't be enough rooms available. The smirk on his face as he suggested I sleep in the yard made it clear this was a well-thought-out way to hassle me. I felt suffocated by the rejection from the man I had loved. While my father-in-law smirked at me in the background. Tom was clearly following his parents' instructions. It was conceivable that he was harassing me because he was told to do so. He chose to side with them, not to protect me. This realization brought a renewed sense of despair, and I could only look at him silently. As he opened my room and demanded me to hurry up, I felt like there was no point in arguing. I entered my room, grabbed the heavy suitcase I had prepared in advance, and left at a speed that took Tom by surprise. I'm going back to my parents' house. Enjoy yourselves, I told them. I had kept my belongings in order so that I could return to my parents' house at any time. Now, anything left in my room could be disposed of without concern. Tom and his parents seemed startled, not expecting me to leave, and they tried to stop me. My mother-in-law even accused me of pushing housework onto her, but I knew that was her intention all along. Having lived with such a father-in-law and with Tom before our marriage, it seemed to me that she had no love for her family. Instead of fighting back, she had hoped to find a new target in me, the daughter-in-law. Ignoring all their schemes, I headed back to my parents' house. Though surprised, my parents understood the situation and showed anger toward Tom and his parents. Feeling supported, I was relieved until Tom contacted me. He was apparently coming to my parents' house with his parents to take me back, saying, "I'll forgive you, so come back." Anticipating a discussion at my parents' house, I made a call to a certain place. With my parents present, the 6 of us sat around a table. Especially my father, upon hearing what I had gone through, glared at Tom and his parents with utmost anger. Yet, Tom and his parents showed no remorse. Instead, my father-in-law took the lead, accusing me of being an unreasonable daughter-in-law who wouldn't contribute to her husband's family. My father glared at them in disbelief. "Mirabelle, you should behave more sensibly as a wife. You're still working instead of dedicating yourself to your husband and his family. You should be grateful that we even tolerate that. And returning to your parents' house, who do you think you are? The complaints you have are nothing compared to the duties of a wife. Why don't you try harder and be more supportive at home?" My mother-in-law added, echoing my father-in-law's criticisms. With Tom interjecting, exactly what my parents are saying. The conversation in my parents' living room became increasingly chaotic. I tried to convey my feelings while enduring their words, but it only added fuel to the fire. Each time I spoke, their retorts grew more intense. Suddenly, my father spoke up. "I can't believe you're forcing her to live with you. She might be your wife, but she's still my daughter. If you're saying she's not good enough, we're happy to take her back. Let's go for a divorce." Encouraged by my father, I brought out the divorce papers that I had printed from a website before their arrival. My part was already filled out. All that was needed was Tom's signature. Seeing this, both my father-in-law and Tom started to get angry. "Don't be stupid. You think this is a solution? A wife should not think she can just divorce. Taking such extreme measures, you're a coward." My father-in-law yelled, while Tom, looking annoyed at me, followed. "We haven't even had a proper discussion yet. Can't you be a bit more rational?" This is why I hate it when women can't have a logical conversation. They continued with their snide remarks, trying to destroy the family, huh? So arrogant, not caring about the place or situation. They said they wanted to discuss, but it was clear they weren't in a state to have a reasonable conversation. I had already given up on talking and was only focused on getting Tom to sign the divorce papers. But it wasn't just their terrible attitudes that led to this. "I have something to ask your mother," I said, pulling out my smartphone to show a video. My mother-in-law's face, who had been quiet until then, visibly changed upon seeing the screen. It was no surprise she recognized the content. It showed her opening drawers in my room. Since I had started refusing to do chores at their house and limited my interaction, I noticed items gradually disappearing from my room. The drawer contains a large box for antique jewelry, which was the conversation starter between my husband and me. I purchased them for their design, so overall, they are not very expensive, but some are valuable enough to be kept under lock and key. Stolen were not only the visibly expensive pieces of fine jewelry but also several antique rings and accessories. And then, the contents of the locked box. Each item is a treasured part of my collection, and the realization that someone has been breaking into my room sends a chill down my spine. I considered the culprit, but it seemed unlikely that my husband would target the antiques for monetary reasons. The prices vary, and since my husband, with whom I share household finances, has never reprimanded me, I've been freely collecting them. He knows I've been buying mostly inexpensive items. However, the disappearance of the jewelry with gemstones clearly indicates the motive was to cash them in. Could it be that someone was let into the house while I was away? Realizing someone had been entering my room, I bought a small camera and placed it hidden in the room. After setting it up hidden in the shadow of the furniture, it captured the culprit's image within just a few weeks. At a time when no one was supposed to be at home, the person who appeared in my room was my mother-in-law. Someone could enter without my knowledge only if my husband had lent them the key or given them a spare, most likely. My mother-in-law used it to target the times the house was empty, stealing small amounts of precious metals from the jewelry box. When I confronted her with this undeniable evidence, she turned pale and exclaimed, "I've already sold them, I can't give them back." My mother-in-law became frantic and almost in tears, not knowing if the items had been sold to someone else. When I said, "I will claim damages corresponding to the value," she shrieked, "That's a lie. No way." Although my collection was mostly inexpensive, it included some pieces from reputable stores. Among the stolen items were these high-end pieces. Probably, the locked and carefully stored items caught her eye. And their cash value must have been substantial. But this meant the claim amount was in the tens of thousands of dollars. An amount she couldn't afford as a homemaker. My father-in-law, trembling with rage, glared at me. Without reprimanding his wife for the theft, he suddenly snapped, "Don't mess around. You're going to sue over this trivial matter? If you've married into this family, you should listen. Instead of dressing up in toy-like trinkets, why don't you work on yourself more, maybe lose some weight?" My father-in-law, red-faced and yelling. It seemed to genuinely believe that once married into their family, I was their property. He was just angry that I wasn't complying with everything he said. "Enough with the jokes." He finally stood up, raising his hand towards me. I braced myself for the blow, but my father quickly stepped in, preventing it. Just then, the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the person. The person whom I had contacted. A lawyer specializing in divorce issues. I had been consulting with this lawyer since I first considered divorce, especially after the theft suspicions arose. He was an older, authoritative lawyer from a firm known for handling divorce cases effectively. His presence filled the room with a serious atmosphere, and Tom and his parents seemed diminished by the lawyer's authority. First, the lawyer explained that we would be seeking compensation from my mother-in-law for the theft. Then, he laid out the evidence of the unreasonable demands and treatment from Tom and his in-laws. Including the diary I kept for such incidents, recordings I had made, and the footage from the small camera, all of which were admissible as evidence. He explained that we could claim damages for the mental anguish they caused. When the topic of divorce and the ensuing financial settlement came up, Tom, in a panic, got up and began pleading with me. "Throw away this stupid idea of divorce, we're in love, aren't we? You don't seriously want to split up?" As he groveled, his parents chimed in, "That's right, rethink this, you can still turn back." It was clear they hoped I'd withdraw the divorce, but I felt it was a waste of time to even engage with them. "We're not in love anymore, so that's inaccurate. I genuinely want to split up. If necessary, I'll consult my lawyer as many times as needed, even if it takes a long time or we end up in court." My firm rejection made Tom slump in defeat. Deflated, perhaps due to the authority of the lawyer's title, Tom's parents also quieted down and grudgingly agreed to the divorce. When the lawyer asked my mother-in-law why she stole, the shocking truth emerged. She was a reckless spender, and after splurging on shopping, she found herself short on living expenses. Unable to tell her husband, she planned to borrow money from Tom. He was on a business trip, so he told her, "Use the spare key. There's money in the bedroom drawer, take it." She did, but then noticed the rings I left in the bedroom and thought there might be more. Rummaging through my room, she found the jewelry box. And the locked box, which she quickly took to a locksmith. I lost the key, she lied to get it opened, took the contents, and replaced the empty box. Every time she was short on cash, she would sneak into our house and steal more. Hearing this, my father-in-law turned on her, calling her the lowest of thieves. Despite their insults, my parents ushered them out of the house, and they left in a loud commotion. I never went back to that house, leaving the disposal of the furniture to them. My ex-husband and his parents began living there. But due to the financial claims I made, they couldn't afford to pay, and the house and land were eventually seized. I heard from neighbors they moved to a small apartment and lived poorly. However, my ex-husband told me that his father had been leaving all the housework to his mother, burdening her and then blaming her for the theft, causing her to run away with most of the family's money. In a panic, my ex-husband called, asking if I knew anything. I had no contact with her, so I advised, "You should file a missing person report," and hung up. The two left behind did indeed report to the police. My mother-in-law is being searched for as a missing person, but so far, she hasn't been found. There's been no word from her, but I wonder if she will eventually be returned to my father-in-law and ex-husband. It seems that they are constantly bickering and fighting with each other now that they have no one to take care of them. Even at the company, I hear rumors about my ex-husband Tom, who is in a different department. Due to the significant decrease in his living standard, he's making more mistakes at work and his performance in the sales department has plummeted. Since he used to get work by being nice to everyone, his mistakes and missteps with clients have led to his reassignment to a less desirable department, famous for grueling tasks like telemarketing. He's becoming increasingly exhausted. Moreover, after committing a major mistake by sending confidential company information in an email to a client, he completely lost his footing. This became a big issue in the company, with various departments scrambling to take measures, and Tom was held accountable and penalized. Eventually, feeling uncomfortable, he chose to resign voluntarily, as I was informed by a well-connected colleague. As for my father-in-law, apparently, he too became more irritable at work due to his fatigue. His juniors and subordinates started complaining of mental distress, leading to his demotion for not being suitable for his current position. This hurt his pride, and he chose to resign in anger. Given his reputation, re-employment was difficult, and later on, Tom tearfully contacted me, saying, "We are living off our savings. Can you help us?" But I had no choice but to refuse. The alimony was already paid, and there was no reason to continue any relationship with them. I politely declined and then blocked their numbers. Finally free from them, I decided to change jobs to a company that had been offering me a good position, as I was growing weary of being known as the divorced ex-wife at my current job. Also, not wanting to rely on my parents indefinitely, I used the alimony to move into an apartment closer to my new workplace. My parents, though worried, respected my desire to be independent and saw me off. I make sure to keep in touch with them and spend time with them during long vacations. In my new environment, my life began to improve. I think I have recovered mentally, so much so that I can think positively. I would like to get married again if I have a chance. You miscarried because you weren't careful enough. Christina, haven't you gotten pregnant again since then? I'm sorry. Blamed by Michael and my mother-in-law, I spent my days in a confined world. I never thought I'd be blamed alone for the miscarriage and not having a child afterward. My heart was completely worn down by this marriage. Then 7 years passed. I miraculously became pregnant. I thought I would never have children again. It was like a bolt from the blue. Michael, who was overjoyed, changed his tune. Really? Awesome! Without changing my expression, I calmly said, "I want a divorce." What? Shocked, Michael and my mother-in-law faced me as I shouted, "I know all about what Michael has been doing. Stop making a fool of me." What Michael had done was unforgivable. My anger blazed unceasingly, burning ever higher. My name is Christina King, 29 years old. I married Michael, my classmate from vocational school, 8 years ago, at 21. We still don't have kids. Currently, I live with Michael, his parents, and my younger sister Marilyn, a high school student. That's 5 of us. The reason for this living arrangement goes back to when I entered vocational school. I've always loved baking. So, after high school, I enrolled in a pastry chef school. Michael, my husband, was a classmate. We got along very well and started dating soon. College life was so much fun. Just before graduation, my parents died in an accident. It was so sudden, I was engulfed in grief. But I couldn't just cry forever. I had my younger sister Marilyn. She was still in elementary school. I had a job lined up at a famous bakery, but thinking about living expenses and Marilyn's tuition weighed heavily on me. The insurance money from my parents' accident had been used up on medical expenses for my sick grandparents. Could I support Marilyn on my starting salary? When I was feeling anxious, Michael was the one who offered me a lifeline. "Let's get married and move to the countryside together, with your sister too," he said. Michael was the heir to a traditional confectionery store. He planned to take over the family business after graduation. I intended to marry Christina sooner or later, it just happened sooner than planned. He assured me that once we were married, his family could help with Marilyn's tuition and living expenses. Of course, I had my doubts about accepting such an offer so easily. But Michael firmly said, "Christina, you're practically family already, it's only natural to help each other out." His words were so comforting, I cried. I declined my job offer and became part of the Michaels family. Michael's family lived in the countryside. The traditional confectionery shop run by my in-laws, King, is a long-established business dating back 140 years. In the local community, it was a beloved shop known to everyone. My in-laws welcomed me and Marilyn warmly. I felt safe with them. They even promised to support Marilyn's education and living costs. I remember feeling very relieved. But looking back now, I can only think I was ignorant of the world. I had been thinking naively. I had no idea that marrying into this family would change my fate so dramatically. After marrying Michael, I worked at the confectionery daily. Mostly, I helped my mother-in-law with ordering supplies and managing expenses. Only my father-in-law and Michael actually made the confections. During busy times, some male part-timers from a confectionery school would come to help. It's not that I'm dissatisfied with my current job. But I graduated from a patisserie school. Yet, I haven't made a single confection. I want to work in the kitchen too. Even just to help with preparations. When I tell Michael this, he just says, well, maybe someday, avoiding a clear answer. I felt a bit frustrated, but I had no choice but to comply. As time went on, I got pregnant. 4 months in, we found out it was a boy. Michael and my in-laws were overjoyed. I was happy too. One day, when I was feeling uneasy, I started experiencing stomach pains from the morning. I had a bad feeling about it. I rushed to the nearby OBGYN. The doctor, who had been taking care of the King family, was recommended to me by my mother-in-law, and I had been visiting here. The elderly doctor began with, "I'm sorry to say." Then slowly, he announced, "You've had a miscarriage." My mind went blank. Stunned, I underwent the necessary procedures and returned home. Could there be anything more heartbreaking? When Michael asked, "How did it go?" I reported back to him through tears. That's when Michael's attitude changed. "What? You had a miscarriage? Why?" "I don't know. There can be many reasons for a miscarriage, they couldn't pinpoint one." "What? Isn't it because you weren't careful enough?" I was shocked by Michael's angry response. I thought. I was expecting comfort, but his reaction was unexpected. I couldn't believe what he said, and as I stood there dumbfounded. My mother-in-law also arrived upon hearing the commotion. "That's right, Christina. It's a shame, expected a boy, and you miscarried. You've let us down." "I didn't. Don't you know? You're supposed to bear a male heir for the King family. If you can't do that, you have no place here." My mother-in-law said this with a terrifying look and returned to her room. I never expected to be spoken to like this. The shock of the miscarriage and the harsh words left me stunned. It took me a long time to recover. Not a single word of sympathy from Michael or my mother-in-law. Instead, they hurled even more bitter words at me. "Geez, how long are you gonna keep that gloomy face? Just forget about it already. If you have time to be down, start thinking about the next child. Make sure a safe delivery of a boy this time." My father-in-law was silent, but it was clear he agreed with them. Their looks towards me became harsher. After the miscarriage, I felt like I was walking on pins and needles in this house. It wasn't my fault I miscarried. The cause was unknown. I explained this over and over, but they insisted it was due to my poor health or behavior. I couldn't believe it. In this day and age, to think such people still exist. Sure, for self-employed families, having an heir might be important. But the King family's obsession was bizarre. I think the gender of the child shouldn't matter, but Michael and his parents were desperate for a boy. Scarily so. However, the real horror was yet to come. After that, I couldn't get pregnant for a while. Each time, Michael and his parents grew colder. "How many months has it been since then, and you're still not pregnant?" "I'm sorry." I was saddened by my mother-in-law's heartless words. She had been so kind at first, but now she had completely changed, a total 180. Michael was the same. He joined in belittling me. A boy or a girl, it should be a precious child. Michael always said, "Make sure you give birth to a boy." He said it was for the sake of the King family's legacy, but it's absurd in this day and age to insist that the heir has to be a boy. That's what I think, but under their cold stares, I often felt down. I have to have a boy. I researched infertility. It can be caused by men too, not just women. With that in mind, I suggested that Michael should also visit the OBGYN with me. But he opposed it fiercely. "Why should I go to an OBGYN? It's your fault we can't have kids." Michael and his parents seemed to think it was my fault. Disappointed, I fell back into a gloomy routine. The only time I felt at peace was when I was with Marilyn. With no parents, I'm practically a parent to her. After work, I'd listen to her school stories every day. Sometimes I'd help her with homework or play with her. Marilyn always looked up to me, calling me big sister. She came to a strange land with me, never complained, and tried her best to adapt. Marilyn was my emotional support. On the other hand, my in-laws' attitude remained the same. I had suggested infertility treatments like in vitro fertilization, but they just gave me suspicious looks. To get pregnant through such a mechanical method is unacceptable. It must be a natural pregnancy, no less. That's my mother-in-law's catchphrase. The family that runs the traditional shop, which had been passed down through generations for a long time, but the people of the King family had outdated ways of thinking. I sighed. It's too unfair to blame me alone for not having a child. I even consulted with the OBGYN. But the doctor, who's been with the King family for a long time, shared a similar view to my mother-in-law. We are strictly aiming for natural conception. We don't do in vitro fertilization, so you'll have to go to a city hospital for that. The city hospitals are too far to realistically go from here. I'm at a dead end. Unexpected stress started affecting my body. I began to experience irregular menstrual cycles, making it even harder to conceive. Then, one day it happened. I was about to go to sleep and looked at the clock. It was 11 p.m. Michael must be coming home late again. A few times a week, he comes home late. Because of preparations for the next day. I was told to go to bed first, so I had already gone to my bedroom. That night, I went to bed early. But for some reason, I couldn't fall asleep. I got up to drink some water. And passed by the living room. That's when I heard it. Michael and my mother-in-law's voices. They were back. I was about to say something, but I stopped in my tracks. What they were talking about was unimaginable. You're late. Can't help it, she wouldn't give it back. She kept asking when I'd leave my wife. I told her I'd think about it if she had a boy. Just a routine task for me to plant my seed in other women, but they take it seriously, annoying really. I had hopes when she got pregnant last time. A girl was a disappointment. Well, if it doesn't work out, we'll look for someone else. Yeah. The Kings need a boy, not a girl. And since she miscarried the boy, and hasn't been pregnant since. If she gives birth to a boy, you should leave Christina. Of course. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. It seemed from the conversation that Michael was cheating. And he was nonchalantly talking about his mistress being pregnant with a girl. I felt my legs shaking. Is this a dream? They both wanted a boy. To the extent of cheating, or rather, treating it like a task. I was so shocked, I had to leave the spot. They were secretly trying to have a child with another woman, behind my back. Both kept saying it was for the King family, but that's just an affair. Unbelievable. Do they want a boy that badly? That's when it hit me. The part-time workers dispatched from the confectionery school were always boys. There should be many women aspiring to be pastry chefs, yet they never hire women. I casually decided to ask. Why do they only accept men? Of course, I couldn't ask anyone from the King family directly. I decided to ask a boy who helps out at the shop. A student from the confectionery school who works the most during his long holidays. Hey, only boys come to help out here, right? Don't girls like this place? I asked nonchalantly, and the boy answered straightforwardly. Not at all. There are plenty of girls in my class who want to work at the Kings. But the job listings at school are for males only. Really? Didn't you know? Oh, right, Christina, you're not originally from here. This shop doesn't allow women in the kitchen. The Kings are quite traditional, believe in customs and all. The boy seemed to regret speaking too much and clammed up. But I pressed on. What customs? Tell me. He reluctantly shared. The Kings had always been succeeded by men. A few generations back, there was a time when no male heir was born, and a woman had to work in the kitchen. But for some unknown reason, the taste and popularity declined, and the king's business suffered. They ended up in massive debt. However, a miracle boy was born later and took over, turning the business around. Since then, there's been a superstition in the King family that if women make confectionaries, the business will fail. That's why women are no longer allowed in the kitchen. Even the part-time help positions were exclusively for men. The locals seemed to know about the King family's customs through word of mouth. So that was it. I finally understood. Michael never let me work in the kitchen. His parents' abnormal desire for a male heir. That's why they turned cold towards me after I miscarried the boy. And then that night's conversation. Desperately trying to have a boy with a woman who wasn't his wife. But isn't that an unethical act? Being unfaithful over some silly superstition. And it seemed like he planned to leave me if the mistress gave birth to a boy. What do they think of people? Treating women as mere tools for childbirth, I was trembling with anger. I wanted nothing more than to leave this house, to divorce. But there was Marilyn. Since I relied on the Kings for her tuition and living expenses, I couldn't divorce until she graduated high school. I had to endure until Marilyn's graduation. But just enduring wasn't enough. I began plotting my revenge against Michael and his parents. Time passed. Years went by, and I was now 29. I had a plan. For it, I needed to make the Kings as famous as possible. I started actively promoting the Kings on social media. Slowly, their popularity grew, and eventually, they became a nationally known store. Though an old establishment, the Kings had been only a local famous shop. Now, they were a household name, featured on TV and in magazines. Michael and my mother-in-law were happy with my work. They were still cold about not having a male child, but my success with social media and boosting the store's business had secured my place in the family. The plan was working. But I was hesitant to execute it. I owed the Kings one thing: they paid for Marilyn's tuition. But Marilyn was about to graduate. She was acquiring medical qualifications while in school. So, Marilyn had already secured a job as a medical office assistant at a small clinic. "I'm glad you got the job offer. But you chose a hospital quite far away, huh?" Marilyn answered with a somewhat somber expression. "Yeah. I wanted to be far away from here." "You mean?" "Sorry, sis. I'm grateful to the Kings for providing for my living expenses and high school tuition. But..." Marilyn hesitated. When I pressed her for more information, I learned something shocking. Apparently, Michael had tried to assault Marilyn. He said things like, "Christina can't have kids, so you have to fulfill the duty," or "I'm paying for your tuition, so pay me back with your body." Thankfully, he was drunk at the time, and she managed to resist and avoid it, but the next day, he warned her, "Don't tell anyone about last night." I felt dizzy. Marilyn had kept quiet about it, considering my position. She had long known I was being blamed by them due to my infertility. "Finally, when I graduate high school, we can get away from the Kings. You don't have to stay here and suffer because of me. I'm sorry for making you endure all this." Marilyn spoke through tears. "No, I should apologize for putting you through this. If I had seen Michael's true nature earlier..." I apologized to Marilyn, crying. Unforgivable. A fierce flame of anger rose within me. It was one thing for them to involve me, but to involve Marilyn too. The Kings used the fact that they were paying for tuition and living expenses to torment us. I had been thankful and grateful when they said they would take care of Marilyn. But now, it felt like they had said it just to tie me to the Kings. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to divorce immediately. And I had to carry out my plan. That's when I decided. But then, something unexpected happened. I couldn't believe it and asked the doctor repeatedly. I was pregnant. Ever since I found out about Michael's infidelity, being intimate with him was a torment. But if I refused, he would verbally abuse me. I had no choice but to comply. And for 7 years, stress had caused me to have irregular menstrual cycles. I thought I couldn't have children, but the irony was that the moment I decided to divorce, I got pregnant. But my decision remained unchanged. I resolved to announce my pregnancy. Michael was surprised, then delighted. He suddenly started praising me. "Wow, pregnant! That's great! What's the gender? Tell me quickly." "It's too early to know, it's still the beginning." "That's right. We can't be sure yet. It has to be a boy." It seemed my mother-in-law had been listening to the conversation. "That's right. Let me know as soon as you find out." They were as selfish as ever. Without changing my expression, I said calmly, "I want a divorce." "What?" Michael and my mother-in-law were shocked. I glared at them and let it all out. "I know Michael has been cheating for years. No matter how desperate you are to have a boy, it's not excusable. Stop making a fool of me. I have solid proof of your infidelity." After that, I followed Michael when he came home late. He was indeed visiting another woman's house. She seemed to be a high school classmate of Michael's, who had always admired the prestigious King family. It must have been easy for Michael to seduce such a woman. I captured several photos of them together, looking intimate. When I showed the evidence, Michael was taken aback. But he quickly retorted, "What are you talking about? This isn't cheating. It's all because you couldn't give birth to a boy." I had no choice but to find another woman to preserve the Kings. "Really? And assaulting Marilyn was also unavoidable?" Well, that. Michael was at a loss for words. He must have felt guilty. But then my mother-in-law sighed. Her following words were horrifying. "Oh, what do you think we took your sister for? If you couldn't do it, we expected Marilyn to fulfill the duty. Anyone will do, as long as they can give birth to a boy. Being able to bear a male child is the only condition to stay in the King family. You worked hard on the social media promotion for us, maybe out of guilt for not having a child. Well, the store became famous because of it, and we appreciate that. But if you can't have a boy, you have no right to be here. Understand? Do these people have no human heart? They saw Marilyn as just a backup plan for me. All they care about is preserving the Kings." "I don't understand at all. Is the family so important that you'll hurt our hearts for it? Unbelievable. I can't stay in this absurd, nonsensical family any longer." When I shouted, my mother-in-law made a bitter face. On the contrary, Michael snorted. "People outside the King family will never understand, Christina. That's all you were. If you want to divorce that much, fine. But," he said, "if it's a boy, he wants the child. He doesn't need a girl. How can he speak about his own child like this? I never thought they could be so cold." They seemed like a family crazed with superstitions. I had no choice but to agree to these terms. In return, if the child is a girl, they have to promise never to involve themselves with me again. And so, I was finally able to divorce Michael. On the day I left the King family, I was packing my things. Marilyn had already moved to an apartment rented by her employer. It was too dangerous to stay in the King household any longer. While I was packing, Michael appeared. "Hey, isn't it time to find out the baby's gender? Go to the hospital quickly." Even at this time, he's worried about that. I despised him. But I wouldn't have to come here anymore. As a final goodbye, I went to the usual OBGYN. The elderly doctor quickly diagnosed, "It's a girl." Their faces, when I told them, were as if to say, "See, I knew it." They seemed to have completely lost interest in me. But I didn't care anymore. What these people think doesn't matter. I just wanted to leave the house as soon as possible. This long but short marriage was over. I felt relieved, as if a burden had been lifted. But there was still one last thing to do. I updated the king's social media account. And then I left the king house. Afterward, I stayed with Marilyn for a while. Just to be safe, I had informed her workplace that I would be living with her. The clinic director, knowing our situation of having no parents, readily agreed to let me stay. I was grateful for that. Then one day, my phone vibrated intensely several times. It was an angry call from Michael. "Hey, Christina! What have you done?" I knew the reason for his anger. The last post I updated detailed all the wrongdoings of the kings. Their detestable customs and Michael's cheating habits. It spread everywhere, appearing in all sorts of media. As the kings had become a famous store, they were featured prominently on TV news and the internet. They were being bashed relentlessly. If it had been just a small countryside confectionery, it wouldn't have blown up this big. I had ostensibly worked on social media to make the kings more prosperous and famous. But my true intention was different. If you're to drop someone down from a mountain to the valley, it's better to make the fall from the highest, all at once. That's why I raised the king's fame. I successfully marketed them into a fame unusual for a countryside confectionery. When the time was ripe, I dropped the bomb. "I thought we agreed you wouldn't involve yourself with me anymore." I retorted calmly. "Yeah, but..." "Stop being deluded by silly superstitions and treating people like fools with your outdated thinking. You're scum. Get bashed by the public and reflect on your ridiculous actions," I said forcefully and hung up the phone. Shortly after, I went into labor. Fortunately, the clinic where Marilyn worked was an OB/GYN, so I had been attending there. And when I gave birth, it turned out to be a boy. The diagnosis of the country doctor was wrong. Apparently, it's possible to mistake a girl for a boy due to the position of the umbilical cord. But the doctor chuckled. Normally, it's clear enough not to make such a mistake. That doctor was the longtime physician for the King family. Perhaps after years of accommodating the kings, his skills had dulled? I thought so, feeling fortunate amidst the misfortune. Anyway, if the kings knew this child was a boy, they would do anything to take him back. I decided to keep silent. The baby's name is Ray. I chose a gender-neutral name for Ray, just in case the kings ever found out. Ray grew up blissfully unaware of the adults' issues. Meanwhile, the scandal of the kings didn't die down. Their thoroughly outdated custom of excluding women. Michael's numerous affairs, all excused by succession. These became perfect fodder for a scandal-hungry public. The rumors about the kings were wildly and fiercely spread. Their reputation affected their business significantly. Their regular corporate customers from hotels and inns started canceling one after another. And the number of walk-in customers decreased. Gradually, their business went into debt. And eventually went bankrupt. Michael and his parents now apparently live in a small apartment. To cover the debts, they had to sell their house and store. Shocked by their downfall, Michael's parents fell ill. Michael now spends his days caring for them. And of course, being looked down upon by the locals, but also the relentless bashing on social media by strangers. Their names, photos, and even their address were exposed online. They've had endless troubles like graffiti on their house and stones thrown at them. To me, it was all their own doing. A family that believed in outdated superstitions and dehumanized people. No matter how famous their confectionery was, who would want to eat it knowing the people behind it lacked any compassion? Watching Ray play with his toys, I thought about it. Here was the boy the kings had so desperately wanted. It's ironic that they went bankrupt after a boy was finally born. Captured by their own agenda, they lost sight of what it means to be human. Ray looked at me curiously. I decided to stop thinking about them. My revenge was over. It was time to use my time for myself. I made up my mind to pursue something I had been envisioning. As time passed, Ray entered elementary school. At the same time, I decided to rent an apartment. I couldn't keep staying in Marilyn's workplace apartment forever. Besides, I had received a substantial amount of money. I had become a pastry chef, making my own cakes. I rented a small shop to sell them. At first, they didn't sell much, but gradually they became popular through word of mouth. From there, corporate customers like nearby hotels started increasing, and my business got on track. That's why I was able to plan for renting an apartment to live with Ray. I was so happy to be working as a pastry chef again. After all, I hadn't made sweets for a while since marrying into the Kings. But when I made sweets again and saw Ray's smile, my old passion was rekindled. I wanted to make my own sweets again. To see the smiles of people eating them. That was my original starting point. I remembered that. Imagining the smiles of those who eat my creations. That gives me more strength than anything. I may not become as famous as the Kings, but that's okay. If I put my heart and soul into it, those who eat it, and everyone around them, will surely smile. Ray and Marilyn enjoy the sweets I make with delight. Just that alone makes my heart feel fulfilled. Despite everything, I am very happy now. I can say that from the bottom of my heart, and I can't help but smile. My name is Ava Smith. I've been married for 2 years, but we don't have children. My husband said he likes career-oriented women, but I want to dedicate my time to household chores and my family. So, instead of quitting my job after having a child, I decided to prepare in advance and quit my job now. My husband understood this decision. However, the reality is that we don't have a child yet. It's starting to weigh on me. My sister, Sophia, always leaves her child with me. She got pregnant soon after getting married. But she and her husband, who wanted a stay-at-home wife, had conflicting views since she aimed to be a career woman. They divorced soon after their child was born. Since then, she often leaves her child with me, saying she has overtime work or company parties. The other day was the same. She brought over my niece, Luna, in the morning, saying she had a long business trip. It's just for a week. A whole week? That's too much. Why? It's no different from usual. Usually, you come to pick her up at night. I can't help it, I'm working. You're not working, and this is like a rehearsal for when you have your own child. Wait. What if she gets sick? Just take her to the doctor. Bye. Even though I told her to wait, my sister left anyway, and I couldn't help but feel angry. But now that she's gone, it's too late to refuse. So, I decided to ask my husband for help, who was getting ready to go to the office. Can you come home early this week? Sorry. I've got a week-long business trip starting today. What? You never told me that. Oh, I forgot to mention it. It was decided yesterday. So, manage by yourself. Alone for a whole week? If you manage now, it'll be easier when we have a child. Counting on you, Mama. And he left. What am I going to do for a week? I'm so anxious. I felt overwhelmed but couldn't do much. Then, my mom called. She invited me to lunch. Normally, I would happily join her, but not today. Mom, help me. Oh dear, what's wrong? I told her about Sophia leaving Luna with me and my husband being away on a business trip. My mom decided to stay with me, saying it would be too hard alone. With her around, I felt more at ease and could enjoy tea and chats while looking after Luna. But then, I realized my husband forgot something important. I tried contacting him, but couldn't reach him. Reluctantly, I called his office. But then, my mom comforted me, but the unease in my heart grew. 4 days later, Sophia contacted me. Thanks for babysitting. What's my cute daughter Luna up to right now? Despite saying she was on a business trip, my sister Sophia sounded very cheerful. Not a hint of fatigue in her voice. I'm thinking of buying some souvenirs, so what would you like? Any preferences? I couldn't care less about souvenirs. If she has the time for that, she should come home. That's all I can think about. Especially since I'm dealing with problems here. Luna had a fever 2 days ago, you know. Oh, wonder what it was. Sophia laughed it off. But I can't come back, I'm on a trip for work. I see. When I called my husband Noah's office, his boss answered. I couldn't believe what I heard. I need to reach my husband because he forgot an important file. He doesn't answer his cell, and he said this file is crucial for his work. Can you tell me where he is on his business trip? However, his boss said there's no business trip scheduled, he's taken a week of paid leave, and I heard it's for a family vacation, sounding apologetic as he informed me. After hanging up and telling my mom, she looked troubled. Then, looking at our family calendar, she asked, are these business trips and overtime Noah's? Yes, they suddenly come up. Weren't you taking care of Luna on these days? She pointed out, and sure enough, there was overtime written with M underneath on the calendar. M for Luna, indicating I was babysitting her. Why does Sophia leave Luna with you on the days of Noah's overtime or business trips? Mom didn't say more, but it was enough to make me think. So, I called Sophia's office, pretending I didn't know she was on a business trip. But I got the same story, a week of paid leave and a family vacation. The word affair started to linger in my mind. They lied to take time off together. Both for a whole week. And no matter how much I tried, I couldn't reach either Sophia or Noah. When Sophia finally called, she sounded too cheerful. Without any guilt or apology for leaving her child. She didn't seem worried about Luna either. Just 3 more days, okay? You can handle the second half. Is that okay with you? Of course, it's work, what can I do? Are you really at work? Of course. What else would it be? I wouldn't leave Luna for anything but work. Then I heard a voice in the background. It was familiar. So, what's Luna doing? We've just finished wake. What? After saying that, I hung up the phone. That voice was Noah. Seeing me dazed, my mom asked what happened. But I couldn't find the words. And I just started crying. After a while of crying, Luna came over with her stuffed animal, saying, "Don't cry." What happened? It was Sophia on the phone. I heard Noah's voice in the background. I suspected they might be traveling together, but hearing it for sure just made it all too real and painful. That would upset anyone. It's natural to feel that way. Mom, I can't forgive. Oh. Which one? Both of them. I can't forgive Sophia for leaving her child or Noah for cheating. Absolutely unforgivable. You definitely can't. Seeing me cry, Luna brought over her toy phone. Auntie, I'll show you pictures, so don't cry. The photos, taken by Luna, were full of flowers and stuffed animals. As I flipped through them, I stopped at one. This one. What about it? My mom leaned in and seemed to freeze in place too. After a moment of silence, she said, "Well then, if that's the case." And smirked mischievously while patting my back. The next day, around noon, the 2 of them, who weren't supposed to be back yet, returned. They were both dressed in leisure clothes. What happened? I asked as I greeted them. Where's Luna? Sophia exclaimed. She's not here. But why are you back so suddenly? Because wake is over. What about the funeral? That's over too. That's too quick. She's a child, it's quick, right? So you came back for that? Of course. You too? Obviously. Strange, I only spoke with my sister. Why would you come back too, Noah, especially when you were on separate business trips? And those clothes don't look work-related. Well, that's... I tried calling you so many times, why didn't you answer? You're one to talk. When I called, you never picked up. Even when I said Luna was sick, you just laughed. Why should I answer your calls? But... Come on, let's go inside. My mom said, peeking out and urging them in. Mom, why are you in black? So, it's true. I thought for sure you wouldn't come back, saying it was work. I wouldn't stay away at a time like this. Oh, really? By the way, you two were on a trip together, weren't you? What? Sophia, who had been crying until then, suddenly froze. Why would you say that? Why? Because it wasn't a business trip, it was a vacation, right? No, that's not it, mother-in-law. It was just a coincidence that we met there. Oh, really? Yes, it was just a coincidence. I see. You forgot this for your work, didn't you? You always take it with you, whether it's a business trip or not. You said you can't work without it. Oh. That's why I tried to contact you, but couldn't reach you. I thought I had to take it to you, even if it meant getting on the plane, so I called your office. Then your boss answered and said you had no business trips planned. Why did you call my office? Well, it was a big deal for my husband. That is. And not only were there no business trips planned, but you also took a week off for a family vacation. I was shocked. Who were you traveling with, I wonder? Oh, Noah, you shouldn't lie like that. And you, Sophia, saying you were on a long business trip was a big lie too, right? That's not true. I called your office too. Why? Because I started having doubts about the two of you. And sure enough, you also had a week off for a family vacation. What's that about? Your own mother wasn't invited on your trip. That's because... No, I was really on a business trip. Just because I said I called the office, not everyone knows my schedule. Maybe someone who didn't know answered. But I said your boss answered, right? Are you saying even the bosses at your company don't know their subordinates' schedules? Is there such a company? We couldn't possibly be traveling together. It was just a coincidence that our trips overlapped. Oh, a lot of coincidences, huh? Look here. I took down the calendar from the wall and placed it in front of them. Here, business trip and overtime, these are Noah's schedules. And M is for the days Sophia brought Luna to our house. The same, right? Amazing how they align so perfectly. I never noticed before, but once I did, it's just too much to be a coincidence. That's because... Because what? They seem to be desperately searching for a lie to call a reason, but couldn't find a good one. Finally, Noah defiantly said, "These things happen. I'm working, after all." Then what about this? I said, pulling out Luna's phone. Luna showed me photos she took herself, and I was just shocked. Look at this, and this, and this, and this. The photos showed Sophia and Noah cozily leaning on each other. There was even a photo of Sophia lying on Noah's lap and another of Noah giving Sophia a back hug. Luna said Noah comes over often, and you two seem really close. She took these pictures of you two. Amazing, isn't it? That was just a coincidence. We were just joking around in those poses. Oh, just joking, huh? I find it hard to believe. If it's not an affair, people don't just pose like that. Noah, you're fine doing this with a woman you don't even like? And Sophia, you let a man you don't like do this to you? Amazing, in a way. You're quite progressive. Don't talk like that. Oh, did I say something strange? I didn't think it was strange at all. It sounds like you're suggesting we have some kind of inappropriate relationship. I frequently go to my sister-in-law's house to see the kid. That's all there was to it. If that's true, then why not say it? Normally you'd say you want to see her, right? I thought it would make you sad because you're disappointed every month about not having a kid. Yes, Noah was thinking about you, Ava, and kept quiet. Really, Sophia? You thought about me too and kept quiet about Noah visiting? Yes, of course. Because you were sad about not having a child. And yet, you left your child for a whole week? Can you believe that? Well, that's because kids are honest, aren't they? But that doesn't mean Noah and I have the kind of relationship you're suspecting. Right. I'm sorry for suspecting you like that. Yeah, it's okay. We're sisters, after all. Really? So, you were on a business trip, right, Sophia? Of course, I was. But it looked like you were on vacation. What do you mean? Look, your Instagram is full of pictures saying currently on vacation. That was just me trying to get into the vacation spirit on Instagram. Really? The food looked delicious, and you even enjoyed the night view. It really looked like you were on vacation. Yeah, I arranged it well, right? Yeah, really well. So, who did you go on this trip with? Because I can see a man's arm in the photos. And Sophia, your arm is entwined with his. That's something people in a close relationship do. Oh, maybe someone from work, perhaps a boyfriend? Sophia's eyes were darting around. It was clear she was lying. Oh, really? But look, this watch. It's Noah's, isn't it? What? Noah bought it when he was younger, saying it was a one-of-a-kind piece. It was quite expensive. No. I thought it was unique, but it wasn't. There must be someone else with the same watch. And what about this bruise? Bruise? Look, this one. You said this bruise was incredibly rare and would be easy to identify in case of an emergency. You don't often see a bruise like this. It's impossible for someone else to have the exact same one, right, Noah? No, that must be someone else with the same bruise. Yeah, that's it. Can you stop joking around? How far will you go to deny it? We're not in that kind of relationship. I see. So, where did you two meet? Surely not in the same hotel, right? Of course not. That's impossible. I see. That's right. Noah's company always uses business hotels for trips. Yeah, of course, it's a business trip. And where did you meet? At this point, both of them responded simultaneously, but their answers were completely different places. They both said they met together, yet their stories were totally inconsistent. I couldn't help but laugh at the misunderstanding, but they quickly corrected themselves. They continued to dig themselves deeper into a hole. Well, never mind. Surely you brought back souvenirs, right? Yes. We did. Let me see them. They presented their souvenirs. I carefully examined the wrapping paper of the souvenirs. I noticed neither had the names of the places they mentioned. Instead, they bore the name of a luxury hotel. And both souvenirs had it. You bought them from the same place, huh? What? No way. But look, both have the logo of a luxury hotel. If you're gonna cheat, you should be more careful with these things. It's not like that. These are sold everywhere. It's a famous hotel. Wow, must be a pretty amazing hotel then. I said this and then turned over my husband's bag. He started panicking, but my mom stopped him. Inside the bag was a toothbrush with the hotel's logo. You're so cheap, always bringing these things back. My sister was gripping her bag tightly. My mom grabbed it from her. Despite my sister's protests, Mom turned the bag upside down. And out came a towel with the hotel's logo. So, it's confirmed. You both stayed at the same hotel, right? Well, we had separate rooms. Still saying that? Then let's call the hotel and confirm if you two stayed in the same room. If we find out that, there's no escaping it. Please don't, I beg you, don't do that. Then will you tell the truth? Yes, I'll tell. I was with Sophia. We're in a relationship. Why? How did it come to this? It started with looking after the kids and discussing work, and then it just happened. I felt sorry for you, but I couldn't stop it. But we're not planning to marry or break up our homes. Too late. It's already broken. Knowing this, I can't think of continuing together. Let's divorce. Wait, I don't want a divorce. Well, I do, I said and spread out the divorce papers on the table. My name was already written in them. My parents' names were in the approval section, and all that was left was for Noah to sign. Okay, I get it. He hadn't expected it to come to divorce and signed the papers, looking defeated. Just then, the front door opened, and Luna's cheerful voice was heard. I'm back. Holding a bag of snacks, she entered with my father and was surprised to see Sophia and Noah. Mom! What, Luna, why are you a ghost? What are you talking about? It's the real Luna. Why? You said the wake and the funeral were over. They are over. What do you mean? She's right here. Yeah, what's going on? You said the wake was over. Oh, that. We were playing funeral. It just ended. What about the funeral? It's quick because she's a kid. Kids get bored quickly. Why would you let her play like that? She saw a funeral scene on a TV drama. Kids imitate anything. Why would you do something so misleading? You just assumed it on your own. But, Mom was wearing black clothes and said as expected. Oh, I didn't say anything. Besides, I always wear black-based clothes every winter. That's why it was just black. What? We hurried back from our trip thinking it was Luna's funeral. So it was a trip after all. Whatever. It's too late now. The divorce is final, it's over. Right, Sophia. I'm cutting ties with you too. Why? You seduced your sister's husband. And while pretending to work, you dumped your child on your sister to go on a trip. That's unforgivable. I don't need a daughter like that. That's too harsh. It's what you deserve. I don't care, as long as Luna is alive. Come on, Luna, let's go home. My sister tried to take Luna with her. But Luna refused, saying she didn't want to go. What's wrong? Don't you want to go home with Mom? No. It's not fun with Mom. Here, I have my aunt, grandpa, and grandma. I'm always happy here. But at home, I'm always alone. Even when Mom or Uncle are there. When they are together, they go to the bedroom and tell me not to come in. So, I don't want to go home. Luna. You can't say that. I hate Mom. Oh no. Let her stay for a while. She'll get bored eventually. I won't let you come back home, but Luna is our granddaughter. My sister was shocked to be hated by Luna, but she and Noah left our parents' house. However, she kept calling, wanting Luna back. Ava, how's Luna? She's playing. Right now, she's out walking with Dad. Doesn't she want to come back? No, she's happy here. She says it's not lonely like it is with you. If Luna wants to come back, let me know right away. I know. Even though you stole my husband, you're still Luna's mom. But no matter how many times she called, Luna's feelings didn't change. Even when she talked to Luna directly, she said, I hate Mom. Don't call me, I'm happy here. One day, after all this continued, my sister finally snapped. I married Noah. Oh, congratulations. No matter how much you ask for him, it's too late. Don't worry, I won't ask. I'm giving Luna to you. She doesn't want to come back to me. I don't care about her anymore. I'll have children with Noah. Ah, you think so? Yes, he couldn't have kids with you, but if we want, we can easily have them now. There's no problem. We can have as many kids as we want. Well, good for you. If you can, you should have them. Of course, I can. Noah said you couldn't have kids. That's why no matter how hard you tried, it was useless. He's excited to have kids with me. Oh, he said that? I wonder if he knows the truth. What truth? I won't say Noah is sterile, but the likelihood of infertility is stronger on his side. I've been to the doctor and received confirmation that I can have children. Who told you such a thing? Noah's mom did. What do you mean? Noah had mumps in middle school. He had a high fever for a long time, so it was thought that having children would be difficult. But she couldn't tell me because she knew I wanted kids and was worried it might lead to divorce. That's unbelievable. When I went to report our divorce, she revealed it all. She even told me to make sure to marry someone who can have children next time. So, it turns out I'm not the one with fertility issues. That's ridiculous. But it's not absolutely impossible for him. It's not like he has zero sperm. Good luck with that. I thought I'd have children with Noah when I married him. That's why I quit my job. Oh, but you said you wanted to be a career woman and didn't quit when you had Luna. That's why you divorced your first husband, right? Why did you quit this time? Because I divorced last time, I quit this time so I wouldn't have to divorce again. I see. But Noah likes career women. That's why he was attracted to you. Be careful not to get cheated on. What did you say? Exactly that. What do you mean? For 2 years, we couldn't have children, but Noah never blamed me. I thought he was such a kind man. But now I realize, he knew he couldn't have children. That's why he was kind to me. So, it was his fault. You're lucky, he'll still be kind to you even if you can't have kids. That's not a joke. I want children. This is like fraud. Well, you chose Noah, and took him from me. Nothing can be done now. No returns. What do you mean? Oh, you know what? What do you want to say more? I have to claim alimony for the divorce. What? You're talking about alimony when we might not even be able to have children? Not might not, it's almost certain. And you still want to claim alimony? Don't worry. It's not just you, I'll claim from Noah too. It's infidelity during marriage. He'll have to pay. Why? I can't have children and now alimony? That's too much. Well, you can't help it, you know. If you're going to be angry at Noah. After all, he's the one who might be infertile. I'll be claiming half of the alimony from him. He might even end up paying all of it, but it's going to make his life tough. His boss knows about the affair trip, so hopefully, he doesn't get fired. Why would that happen? Remember, I called Noah's company during your affair trip. His boss answered. That company is very strict about affairs. He's probably close to getting fired. That's not a joke. No joke. But don't worry. There's nothing more to it. Then give me back my child. My child. Sorry, but no. Denied. Later, my sister confronted Noah with the truth. He admitted he knew he probably couldn't have children. That's why he preferred a career-oriented woman who might not want kids. But when Luna rejected her parents, and my sister, having quit her job, wanted children, she kept blaming Noah. He was forced to quit his job and became unemployed, which only added to my sister's frustration. How can you have no children and be unemployed? You are nothing to me. He was cursed daily, and it became painful for him to be with his sister. Ava never said such things to me. Whenever he complained, he was met with even more abusive words. However, 6 months later, surprisingly, Sophia became pregnant. Is it my child? Noah asked, in disbelief. Sophia laughed and said, as if a man without seed could father a child, revealing it was another man's child. You can't produce children, so what's wrong with getting it from someone else? Blame yourself for deceiving me. You should work for this child. This led Noah to a life of juggling multiple jobs. Even when he returned home, he faced only a cold atmosphere, which didn't change even after the child was born. Worn out, Noah contacted me, hoping for help, but I refused, saying it was a marital issue. He was reduced to a life of labor without even a small allowance, his only purpose being to work. Still, he endured, spending his days in tears. Meanwhile, I adopted Luna and now live happily with her at my parents' house. Luna is growing up well, and we enjoy every day together. A life without children is miserable, huh? My daughter is adorable and a genius. Cohen Kirby said with a grin on his face, causing my insides to boil with rage. It was like he had forgotten all about how he had treated me in the past, casually striking up this conversation and then saying this. I couldn't help but feel furious. However, I reminded myself of the situation I was in and managed to suppress my anger. Carefully maintaining a cheerful appearance, I decided to respond to Cohen. Even if he got mad, it wouldn't come close to what I had endured. I called my daughter, Sarah, who was a little distance away, and proudly said, "Well, let me introduce my daughter then." I probably had the smile I envisioned on my face. As I showed that to Cohen, I hugged Sarah, who had run over to me. Huh? Cohen looked at us with a dumbfounded expression, his mouth agape in surprise. He couldn't accept the reality of the woman he had always looked down upon. Jolie, who had been smirking by Cohen's side until then, seemed unable to hide her shock either. Ignoring them, I turned to talk to Sarah. My name is Kyrie Allen, a 51-year-old businesswoman. Whenever I mention that my daughter is 12 years old, people are usually surprised. Yes, I married late, but there's a story behind that. Actually, I'm divorced, and I didn't have any children from that marriage. I met my ex-husband, Cohen Kirby, in a blind date. A friend of mine, who was worried about my perpetual workaholism and unwillingness to get married, arranged a party for me. That's where Cohen took a liking to me and started pursuing me intensely. That said, I still had no intention of doing so at first, and I was still cowed by Cohen's favors. But he was so persistent that I eventually warmed up to the idea. As a result, Cohen and I started dating and soon got married. Once married, Cohen, who was very keen on having children, was serious about trying to conceive. However, being in my late 30s then, I felt an immense pressure. Whether it was due to that or not, we had trouble conceiving. Gradually, Cohen's attitude toward me cooled, eventually turning contemptuous. "What's up, infertile? Did you pick up the cleaning I asked about before?" He began referring to me as infertile and treating me like a servant. It was incredibly frustrating, and I desperately looked for a solution. I even went to the hospital, fearing the worst, but all the tests showed that I was perfectly healthy. In fact, the doctor even suggested that stress might be causing it, leaving me feeling utterly helpless and downhearted. I tried everything, watching my diet, taking supplements. Despite all efforts, I still couldn't get pregnant. Wondering if the problem might not be mine, I suggested to Cohen Kirby that he should get tested. "Hey, Cohen." I went to the doctor, and they found nothing wrong with me. "So, there might be a chance that, it could be you." "I think you should get tested," I said. Cohen's face turned red with anger immediately. "What? You're saying something's wrong with me? It's just you who can't get pregnant, don't you dare doubt me." "But there's nothing wrong with me, and I've been undergoing treatment for so long. If we can't have kids, it only makes sense that the issue might be with you." "That's impossible. I'm always fine, it has to be your fault, you're the only one to blame." Cohen stubbornly refused to consider my suggestion, insisting the problem was mine. At first, I argued back, but constant accusations wore me down. Finally, one of Cohen's remarks broke me completely. "What's the point of you being a woman if you can't even have kids?" He said it so dismissively that I was left speechless. Not because I agreed with him, but because I was shocked by the extent of his cruelty. I managed the house and supported Cohen, who also worked, as best as I could. Yet, just because I couldn't bear children, he dismissed me entirely. My spirit broken, I couldn't bring myself to ask him to get tested again. The thought of hearing those same harsh words made me too afraid to speak up. Sensing this, Cohen began ordering me around even more. I'm beat. I don't want the usual beer today, I'm craving that import one they sell at the liquor store downtown. Hey, you, since you're obviously not busy being infertile, go get it for me, now." He grew more audacious, treating me like a mere errand runner, laughing smugly. Any hint of resistance from me was met with even more vile words. I endured, day after day, without a thought of anything else. You'd think I'd have left him by now, right? But being a latecomer to marriage, I feared I'd never marry again if I left this one. Plus, I was somehow convinced that divorce was shameful, making it hard for me to take that step. So, time just passed, and I turned 38, when things suddenly took a dramatic turn. At that time, I was still working and enduring the infertility snoring that continued almost daily. Come on, you should know what I don't like by now. How can you expect me to eat such awful food? This is exactly why you're... That day, I couldn't hold back anymore and snapped back. What does food have to do with not having kids? I can't stand it anymore. Enough is enough, I exclaimed. Cohen leaped up, yelling at me fiercely. What's with that attitude? You can't even fulfill your role as a woman, and you dare complain to me when I get home from work. His unreasonable argument infuriated me. What role as a woman? If that means having kids, then you share the responsibility. I got tested, and there's nothing wrong with me. But you refuse to get tested, avoiding your responsibility. And yet, you have the nerve to complain only to me. It's just unfair. Cohen Kirby seemed a bit flustered by my rare rebuttal. But he quickly regained his composure and started hurling insults again. Why are you so stubborn? If it were her, she'd immediately reflect and apologize in this situation. His words stopped me in my tracks. Before I could even ask who her was, Cohen's expression changed to one of regret. And he quickly turned away, leaving the house without another word. He didn't come home that day, and I grew increasingly suspicious. From his tone, it was clear there was another woman in the picture. This meant he was cheating, which could potentially lead to a divorce. Not because I couldn't have children, but because of Cohen's infidelity. With this in mind, I acted quickly. I searched the internet for a nearby private investigator and hired them to look into Cohen's recent suspicious behavior and his mistress. A few weeks later, the investigator's report arrived. During this time, Cohen came home but avoided eye contact with me. He even stopped the verbal abuse. It was a surprising and somewhat more comfortable turn of events that made me regret not taking action sooner. I should have to do it. As these thoughts crossed my mind, I looked through the report. It confirmed Cohen's infidelity and included evidence and details about his mistress. Her name was Jolie. A 23-year-old, obviously much younger than both Cohen and me. They apparently started seeing each other right after I first suggested Cohen get tested. It meant this affair had been going on for years. Filled with sudden rage of finding it out, I decided to proceed with a divorce. While I prepared, Cohen was surprisingly calm. It was allowing me to make steady progress. Finally, I decided to confront Cohen about the divorce. Cohen, we need to talk. It's not about the test, it's something more important, I said as he just came home from work, making a displeased face. What now? I've got something to tell you too. Make it quick, he said, looking bored but somewhat attentive while fiddling with his phone. Before he could change his mind, I quickly presented him with the investigator's report. You're cheating, Cohen. I've had it thoroughly investigated, so there's no escaping this. Between the child issue and your infidelity, I can't take it anymore. I want a divorce, I said, thrusting the report and a partially filled-in divorce papers at him as a sign of my will. Instead of being flustered, Cohen smirked and took the divorce papers from my hand. Well, aren't you prepared? Such perfect timing almost makes me question your precognitive abilities, he remarked while operating his phone. Suddenly, with a click, the front door opened. Hello there, excuse my intrusion. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Jolie, the one who's gonna marry Cohen soon. The person who entered through the front door was the same one in the photos enclosed with the private investigator's report. Jolie, who looked even younger and cuter in person than in the photos, greeted me with a smirk. Today was actually the day I planned to introduce you to her. And to think you'd prepare the divorce papers for me, I didn't see that coming. If you had been this considerate all along, maybe I would have stuck around, but it's too late now. Cohen said half-jokingly, taking the divorce papers and walking into the living room. I was too shocked to grasp the situation and stood there, frozen. Soon, Cohen emerged from the living room with the divorce papers filled out. He handed them to me with a sly smile, saying, "This sure saves a lot of trouble. We're no longer husband and wife, so leave now. Jolie's pregnant, and I want her to have as little stress as possible." Faced with Jolie's and Cohen's malicious grins, I lost my composure. Snatching the divorce papers from Cohen, I ran to my room. I grabbed my already packed bags and left the house without a word. Fast forward 13 years. I had come to see how the project I was involved in had been completed. My job is as a professional consultant, and this time I was tasked with designing an apartment building that would be disaster-resistant and children-friendly. After Cohen introduced me to Jolie, I took refuge in a nearby business hotel. I waited until dawn to submit the divorce papers to the city hall, then moved from hotel to hotel. After that, I was finally settling into an apartment and focusing on my career. Divorcing Cohen seemed to lighten my spirits, and my work progressed smoothly. I got lucky with business opportunities and expanded my network. This revitalization led to my appointment as the project leader for this urban development, a long endeavor that had finally come to fruition. There was a small celebration at the site, crowded with many people. Then, a familiar, unpleasant voice caught my ear. "Hey, long time no see. Still all alone, huh? I came here to buy one of these condos for my family of 3. Not that it matters to you." I regretfully turned towards the voice. I saw Cohen, Jolie. And also there were their daughter, who must have been in Jolie's womb back then. A life without children is miserable, huh? My daughter is adorable and a genius. Cohen said with a grin, causing my blood to boil. He had easily struck up a conversation as if he'd forgotten all the past mistreatment. I couldn't help but feel furious. However, I reminded myself of my current situation and managed to suppress my anger. Carefully maintaining a cheerful appearance, I decided to respond to Cohen. Even if he got mad, it wouldn't compare to what I had endured. I called my daughter, who was a little distance away, and proudly said, "Well, let me introduce my daughter then." I probably had the smile I envisioned on my face. As I flaunted my smile to Cohen Kirby, Sarah ran up to me, and I embraced her. "Huh?" Cohen looked at us, his mouth agape in surprise. Clearly unable to accept the reality of the situation, especially from someone he had looked down upon for so long. Jolie, who had been smirking beside Cohen until then, also seemed unable to hide her shock. Ignoring them, I turned to talk to Sarah. "Did you find a good spot for the shoot?" I asked. Sarah beamed and nodded. "I want to shoot in front of the flower bed you were so particular about." She pointed to the flower bed and grabbed the equipment next to me, dashing toward it. As I watched her spirited back, Jolie screamed in disbelief. "Is that Sarah from the popular video sharing site? Why is she calling you Mom?" Her words caught the attention of Cohen and Jolie's daughter, Yvonne. "That's really her. Wow, I'm meeting the real deal for the first time. Hey, ma'am, can I get her autograph?" "That's a great idea, Yvonne. You really are a genius." Their arrogant remarks were so typical of them as a family. I shrugged my shoulders in resignation and firmly refused. "Sorry, but no. Sarah posts videos because she enjoys filming and editing, not because she wants to be famous. Sure, she's become well known, but that's not her goal." "But why not?" "It doesn't cost anything. Besides, my daughter is a genius." A combination of a celebrity and a genius makes for great content. Annoyed yet curious, I asked Cohen what made his daughter a genius. "All I've seen is her brash and insensitive behavior." Where's the genius in that? How dare you? Yvonne is a bright student preparing for a prestigious middle school. She's going to be someone big. I wished for a concrete example of Yvonne's genius. But Jolie's claims lacked specifics, making me sigh in frustration. Cohen, displeased with my reaction, began bragging more about Yvonne. Yvonne is so talented, she never sticks to anything for long. She masters everything too quickly and then gets bored. It's tough having a genius for a child. Hearing this far from impressive boast, I grew tired of the conversation. Without responding much to Cohen's bragging, I moved towards where Sarah was filming. I could hear Cohen and his family still talking behind me, but I ignored them and called out to Sarah. How's the shooting going, Sarah? Let's go to the cafe when you're done. Many people had gathered around Sarah, intrigued by her filming. Some recognized her as Sarah from the videos, creating a lively scene. I just need to shoot the ending, then I'm done. Just a little longer, she replied cheerfully, waving to the people around her before starting to film the final scene. Hey, Sarah! Let me be in the video with you. At an incredibly inopportune moment, Yvonne tried to interrupt the shoot. Noticing Yvonne's interruption, Sarah smiled at her and then resumed filming. After completing the shoot, Sarah was surrounded by onlookers. Many, like Yvonne, asked for her autograph, but Sarah politely declined each request. Instead, she engaged in friendly conversations with those who had approached her. Sarah continued her activities because she found joy in them, not because she sought fame. While she had indeed become famous, she never bragged about it. Autographs were not something she had even considered. So she chose to connect with her fans through conversation instead. When Yvonne had interrupted earlier, Sarah must have been annoyed. Sarah hid her feelings and gently refused. But I wondered if Yvonne understood that. When Sarah was about to leave, Yvonne, evidently not grasping Sarah's intentions, approached her. Great job on the shoot! Now, how about filming with me next time? Seeing Sarah's dumbfounded look, I couldn't stay out of it any longer. I'm sorry, but Sarah doesn't do collaborations. That smile earlier was just being polite to you for interrupting her shoot. What, is that just lip service? Learning such things at a young age, you're not raising her right. Jolie crossed her arms and looked down on Sarah. Sarah briefly stiffened but remained silent, not retorting. Feeling victorious, Jolie snorted and pressed on. Are you saying Yvonne isn't worthy of filming with you? You know, Yvonne is a genius who can do anything. It could actually boost your popularity. Maybe you should learn to read the room better. Sarah looked at me, unsure how to respond. I sighed and confronted Jolie. Enough already. You keep calling your daughter a genius, but I haven't seen a single concrete example. Being awarded isn't the only mark of greatness, but do you have any substantial achievements to brag about? The onlookers who had been listening to our conversation seemed to agree with me. Jolie looked bitter under the pressure of their words, but Yvonne didn't seem to care. Instead, she proudly started listing her accomplishments. I received a certificate at my piano recital for doing well in practice. And at my dance school, I got one for being able to dance a whole song. Plus, I've been awarded for perfect attendance at school. I've been recognized a lot, you know. Considering Sarah's age, Yvonne must be around the same age. Sarah was 12 years old, so probably Yvonne was also a middle schooler. Her claims felt somewhat trivial for her age. Unaware of the awkwardness, Yvonne looked at us expectantly for praise. I exchanged a helpless glance with Sarah, and we could only make troubled faces. The people around us reacted similarly, with some even bursting into laughter. Finally sensing the mood, Jolie awkwardly changed the topic. So, speaking of your activities, how much do you earn? I doubt it's enough to afford a condo here, right? Caught off guard by her desperate question, I decided to respond. Thankfully, Sarah's videos are quite popular on the video sharing site. She does earn money, but we're saving it for her future. We spend some on necessary equipment for filming. While this condominium is attractive, we don't need it as we already have our own home. Besides, I designed this place, so the success fee was substantial. My current husband runs a company, and combining our incomes, moving here wouldn't be a bad idea. I preemptively answered all the questions Jolie might have wanted to ask. As expected, she grimaced, glaring at Sarah and me. Cohen, having heard my explanation, seemed unable to argue back. However, Jolie, ever cunning, tried to butter me up despite her previously hostile attitude. "So, you built this place? Then you could get us a spot here, right? Our kids are about the same age. Can't you speak up for us out of pity?" I had no intention of agreeing to such a request. As I was about to firmly decline, Yvonne, misunderstanding the situation, chimed in with sparkling eyes. "We can live in this condo if we ask you? Hey, ma'am. We want to live here. Please help us out." I sighed, exasperated. And I decided to set them straight. "I'm sorry, but I can't guarantee you can live here. I might be able to refer you to the management company using my contacts, but there's a screening process. They'll check things like your job, income, potential for the future, and so on. I don't control the screening, so it's not certain you'll get in. It's up to you to make it happen." Jolie clicked her tongue upon hearing this, while Yvonne didn't seem to fully grasp the situation. Cohen then butted in, demanding the impossible. "Our daughter is asking, so make it happen. If you have the connections from building this place, get us through the screening." People around us started whispering at Cohen's unreasonable demands. I felt a headache coming on, wondering how to explain this obvious point. "I can't interfere with the screening process, that's beyond my control. If you want to live here, overcome the challenge on your own merits." At this, Cohen suddenly lost his temper. He began yanking flowers from a nearby bed and throwing them at me. I shielded Sarah from being hit, trying to calm Cohen down. But then, Jolie and Yvonne, following Cohen's lead, started doing the same. Jolie hurled insults and flowers at us, and Yvonne spewed verbal abuse at Sarah. I focused on protecting Sarah, but luckily, people around us intervened. Still, Cohen and his family continued their rampage, throwing anything they could find. Jolie picked up a stone and raised her arm. I grabbed her to stop her, but was shoved into the flower bed, hitting my head. The surrounding crowd became even more agitated and tried harder to stop them. However, the three individuals, who continued to behave violently in a fit of rage, were soon restrained. It's unclear who made the call, but the police arrived after hearing about the commotion. "Who called the cops?" Cohen shouted as the officers restrained him, but no one responded. Jolie, also being subdued by the police, tried to find out who had reported them. Yvonne stopped her tantrum but began crying as she watched her parents being detained. The area, which had been chaotic, suddenly quieted down when an officer's voice rang out. "Caught red-handed on suspicion of obstruction of justice." At these words, the commotion ceased in an instant. Cohen, who had caused the commotion, was apprehended by the police for his aggressive behavior. Holding my head and trying to comfort a tearful Sarah, I watched as he was taken away. At the same time, Jolie and Yvonne were also escorted to the police station. All three of them were put into a police car and driven away, disappearing from view. Despite the chaos they had caused, their swift removal by the police left me feeling somewhat relieved. But seeing Sarah on the verge of tears, yet still concerned for me, brought me back to reality. "Mom, you're hurt. Should we go to the hospital? Otherwise, you might." The commotion had overwhelmed Sarah, and she finally broke down crying. Hugging her, I apologized for involving her in such a situation. People around us expressed their concern. But I assured them I was fine, especially since Sarah was unharmed. When the sound of an ambulance siren approached, it seemed someone had called for medical assistance. The ambulance arrived, and alongside the police, I was taken in for treatment with Sarah by my side. As I boarded the ambulance, I took one last look at the damaged flower bed. The construction of the large condominium had inevitably created a sense of oppression. I had wanted to alleviate that by setting up a park within the grounds and placing a flower bed there. I hoped that the park would become a place of relaxation and conversation. The park where I first met my current husband had brought me much happiness. Taking a break from work, I had been admiring the flowers in the park when he approached me. From there, I started talking to my current husband, who worked near that park, and we became close. Our relationship grew from occasional lunchtime meetings to dinners, and eventually, we got married. Later, we were blessed with our daughter Sarah, despite it being a late pregnancy. That park, with its flower beds, had brought so much joy into my life. So, I wanted the project I was involved in to offer similar opportunities for happiness. The result of that effort was the flower bed. Seeing the flower bed destroyed was heartbreaking, a sharp contrast to the happiness it symbolized. At the hospital, I received treatment, needing a few stitches. But fortunately, they were almost unnoticeable. Sarah, relieved to see me all right, managed to smile as we left the hospital. While waiting for the bill, I was questioned by the police and decided to file a complaint. I also resolved to hire a lawyer and ensure Cohen and his family faced the consequences of their actions. Jolie was arrested for her involvement in the assault. According to what my lawyer told me, Yvonne was taken in by Jolie's parents after both her parents got into trouble with the police. I thought it was sad enough for her, but she was now facing re-education from her grandparents. Yvonne, taken in by her grandparents, apparently faced stern reprimands for her usual behavior. And she was subjected to strict discipline in an attempt to rehabilitate her. It seems that for Cohen and Jolie, and especially for Yvonne, challenging days lie ahead. As for me, my injury has been healing well since then. I recently had my stitches removed, and there's hardly any sign of the injury now. Sarah has become even more popular since that day and is busily engaging in her activities. It turns out that the police and ambulance were called by one of Sarah's followers. After the shooting was over, Sarah sensed a sense of disquiet and quickly switched to live streaming to distribute the video. Thanks to that, when a big fight broke out, it seems that one of her followers took action. We're truly grateful for this intervention that helped to resolve the situation. Subsequently, Sarah wanted to thank whoever helped, so she called for them to come forward in a video. However, no one did, so she posted a video expressing her gratitude instead. When I went to the park where the disturbance took place to shoot the video, I found that the flower beds had been cleaned up. I was relieved to see that the volunteers had apparently done a good job of putting them in order after the incident. Since then, things have been going surprisingly well. My involvement in the condominium project has raised my professional profile. Thanks to that, I've been promoted and now serve as the head of the planning department. Sarah's video views are also increasing rapidly, and she herself continues to post videos with a happy look. My current husband is very caring and was quite concerned about us. Although I've fully recovered and there's no disruption to my daily life, he still occasionally checks on how I'm doing. Having a kind-hearted husband and seeing Sarah grow up healthy. And I have no problem with that, because my business and my family are prospering. I look forward to spending more happy moments with my family of 3. I was told by my son, Henry, that his spouse, Michelle, cheated on him and even had a child with another man. I can't forgive her for cheating and tricking me like this. I'm gonna get a divorce. A month after he declared this, I got a call. Hi, Susie, it's been a while. I'm getting discharged from the hospital tomorrow and will be coming over. Michelle's innocent voice came through the phone. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. Huh? Aren't you and Henry divorced? What? Divorced? Me and Henry? Oh, come on, Susie, stop joking around. That's not true. From her words, it didn't seem like Michelle was lying. But of course, I couldn't just take her word for it. Suspicious, I decided to confront Henry, who was relaxing at home. Henry, I just got a call from Michelle, and what she's saying is completely different from what you told me. Upon hearing this, Henry started to tremble and clammed up. My husband, Ken, who was watching the situation, thought it was odd and grabbed his baseball bat, slamming it down on the table. Thinking he was about to get hit, Henry finally started talking. "Wait, please. Don't hit me. I'll tell you everything, I promise. I'm Susie. My husband Ken is a retired police officer, and now it's just the two of us living together. Our son, Henry, lives independently and works as a freelancer using social media. I'm not too familiar with that field, but it seems he makes a living through his illustrations. He's quite well reputed and has even been interviewed on TV. Ken, having been a cop, initially didn't understand Henry's line of work. But now, he seems to have come around to accepting it. Since retiring, Ken has mellowed out and helps around the house, something he never had time for before. We live in a house with a garden, and I was looking forward to gardening with Ken. Then, on a sunny day, as we were tending to the garden, Henry suddenly showed up. Ken and I stopped our work in surprise. "Henry, this is unexpected." Henry was grinning. "I just heard you guys having fun and wanted to check it out." "What's with that grin? Got a problem?" Ken seemed a bit embarrassed. He scowled and silently resumed weeding. "Don't be like that. So, what brings you here?" "Well, I have some important news." Suddenly, Henry's expression turned serious, making me brace myself for what was to come. "Well, it's not ideal to talk while standing, so please have a seat," I suggested. Henry and I sat side by side on a small bench in the garden. Ken seemed concerned but chose not to join in the conversation, busily continuing to pull weeds. "I'm thinking of getting married." "Really? Congratulations!" I was genuinely happy for Henry's marriage. Ken, clearly surprised, stood up to look at us. "So, who is she?" Henry grinned again. "Her name's Michelle. And she's actually outside our house right now." "What? Huh?" Ken and I exclaimed in unison. This was too sudden, and I wasn't prepared at all. "Hold on. I can't meet her without even putting on makeup." "It's fine. Being natural is best. Michelle is a good person, no worries. I'll go call her." Watching Henry go to call Michelle, I sighed. Looking at Ken, he seemed just as incredulous, shaking his head at me. "Well, that's just like them. Always like this. What a predicament. Well, it can't be helped. It'd leave a bad impression to send her away after bringing her here." Soon, Michelle arrived, led by Henry. Under the afternoon sun, she looked radiant. Her clothes and mannerisms were charming, and she seemed well-raised. I felt embarrassed about my own attire, impressed as I was by Michelle. "Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is Michelle." "Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle, Henry's girlfriend." "Thank you for coming here. Normally, we should have greeted you properly inside, not out here in the garden." "Oh, that's all right. What a lovely garden you have. So many beautiful flowers. May I help out sometime?" Michelle's eyes sparkled. Her childlike, innocent smile made me happy too. Ken also looked pleased. "Well, Henry's really lucky to have you. He might not be perfect, but please take good care of him. I also ask you to take care of him. But Henry, next time, make sure to tell us in advance." I chided. Henry sheepishly scratched the back of his head. Actually, Michelle was only free today, and she thought it'd make things tense if we called ahead. He explained. Michelle shot Henry a look of mild disapproval. "Well, that's all right. Let's go inside for some coffee." "Sorry, we have another appointment after this. We'll let you know once we set a date for the wedding." With that, the two of them left us standing in the garden. It all happened so fast, it felt like a daydream. "What just happened?" "It's fine. Times are different from when we were young. They're both responsible adults, so it'll be all right." "I guess so." Despite my worries, Henry and Michelle got married without a hitch. They seemed to be doing well even after their marriage. Living not too far from us, Michelle would come to help us out whenever she had time. We'd chat and garden together, and she'd ask to learn my recipes. Ken and I grew quite fond of her, always looking out for her. There didn't seem to be any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, and our relationship was very good. However, Michelle seemed tired. Dark circles under her eyes and slightly hollowed cheeks. One day, while eating snacks, I decided to ask her. "Michelle, you seem tired lately." "I'm worried." "I've been busy with work." Michelle was hiding something. I could feel it. Ken sensed it too and spoke gently. "Michelle, don't hesitate to talk to us. We're family. It's only right to share concerns." Michelle remained silent for a while, munching on her snacks. Then, tears started to fall from her big eyes. "Actually, Henry hardly helps with any housework. I understand we're both busy with work, but it's really tough when he doesn't do anything." With that, she bowed her head, her shoulders shaking. She was too sincere to complain about Henry to us, probably bottling it all up. I hugged her gently and whispered, "I'm glad you spoke up. We'll talk to Henry, don't worry. We're on your side, Michelle." "Thank you." I immediately scolded Henry over the phone. He fumbled for words, making excuses about being busy at work. "Cut it out. Being busy is no excuse. Marriage is about supporting each other." "I understand." Henry seemed to take it to heart, and it looked like Michelle's burden was lightened. Seeing her cheerful again, I felt relieved. She's such a good person, Henry should be working hard to make her happy. A few years later, in the spring, Michelle told us she was pregnant. My husband and I were thrilled at the prospect of seeing our first grandchild, but things didn't go smoothly. Michelle suddenly fell ill and, after being examined at the hospital, was found to be in a critical condition. She was diagnosed with preterm labor and had to be hospitalized. We prayed desperately for a safe delivery. Thankfully, our prayers were answered, and Michelle gave birth safely. She had no postpartum issues, but to be cautious, she stayed in the hospital for a while and planned to spend some time at our house after being discharged. I was eager to see my grandchild, but I knew Michelle's health wasn't fully recovered. About a month after, we had only made congratulatory phone calls. On a rainy day when we weren't gardening, Ken and I were watching TV. Suddenly, Henry came to our house and burst into the living room, crying out loud, "Dad, Mom, I can't stay with Michelle anymore." We were both so shocked we couldn't say anything. "What do you mean? You just had a child, why would you say that?" "Exactly. Start explaining." Sniffling, Henry pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and placed it on the table. "Michelle's been acting weird for a while. She said she was visiting my parents, but she wasn't really coming here. She's been cheating." Ken and I exchanged looks of disbelief. We knew she visited us often, so Henry's words seemed hard to believe. "I know I've done wrong too, but after Mom scolded me, I seriously reflected on my actions. And yet, Michelle went and had a child." "Wait, so the child Michelle gave birth to?" Henry slammed his hand on the paper on the table. "It's not mine. The DNA test showed no parental relation. This is the report. Can you believe it? She tricked me, acting all innocent." Henry ranted, his anger seemingly uncontainable. Rainwater from his clothes splattered on the table and floor. I picked up the report and tried to read it, but the ink had blurred due to the rain. The report clearly stated there was no parental relation. Ken also looked at the report in disbelief. I didn't want to believe that Michelle cheated and tricked him. We had built such a good relationship with her, and I couldn't imagine her doing such a thing behind that demeanor. Ken felt the same and was visibly confused. "Can we trust this report? Shouldn't we investigate more?" I already confronted her. Her attitude changed completely. She insulted me, calling me a convenient ATM. "I can't believe that." It's true. Not just Michelle, her family blames me too. That's why freelancing is no good, they say. I reached my limit, that's why I came here. So, what do you want to do? I'm cutting ties with Michelle. I don't want anything to do with her family either. You mean divorce? Yes. I have all the evidence. I'm not at fault. Henry seemed to have made up his mind. The situation had progressed so far, there wasn't much we could do, but I wished I could talk to Michelle one more time. All right, we'll be prepared for that. Thanks, Mom. It means a lot. But don't contact Michelle or her family. I'll handle everything. If that's what you've decided, do as you wish. But please, no trouble with the police. I know. I'll be going now. Henry picked up the report, stuffed it in his pocket, and left quickly. After that, we went through some gloomy days. There would be no more Michelle helping in the garden, no more requests to teach her cooking, no seeing our grandchild. It was a saddening thought. I thought we were starting a more joyous chapter in our lives, but this felt lonely. Ken didn't say it, but he seemed lonely too, quietly weeding the garden. Then, one day, about a month into this somber routine, we got a phone call. Hello, this is Susie. Oh, hi Susie. It's been a while. I'm feeling much better and will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. I'll be heading your way with the baby, so please be ready. Michelle's innocent voice came through. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. Huh? Aren't you and Henry divorced? What? Divorced? Me and Henry? Oh, come on, Susie, stop joking. That's not possible. I was utterly confused and explained to Michelle what Henry had said. At first, Michelle was incredulous, but she got seriously angry when I mentioned the trickery accusation. That's just ridiculous. Henry was the one who restricted me, saying not to meet other men. I followed that rule, and now he accuses me of cheating? Unforgivable. From her words, it didn't seem like Michelle was lying. But of course, I couldn't just take her word for it. Okay, I understand. Henry is actually at home now. I'll talk to him. Please do. Right after I hung up the phone, Ken came back from the garden. What's going on? A little issue. Is Henry in his room? I think so. I heard some talking. I immediately entered Henry's room. He was on a call on his computer, but quickly shut the screen off as I walked in. What the? At least knock before you enter. Sorry. I made some coffee. Wanna have some? Henry seemed to sense something was off, but followed me to the living room without protest. However, there was no coffee there. Hey, there's nothing here. Just sit down. I sat Henry on the sofa and explained my phone conversation with Michelle. Henry started shaking as he listened. He refused to respond to any further questions. Ken, sensing something was off, picked up a baseball bat and slammed it on the table. Henry! Speak up, we can't understand if you stay silent. Deny it if it's not true. Henry remained silent, so Ken raised the bat as if to hit him. Thinking he was going to be hit, Henry finally spoke. Wait! Don't hit me! I'll tell you everything! Please! Hearing this, Ken lowered the bat. All right, speak up. Henry finally confessed. Michelle and I haven't been getting along. I got tempted and cheated with another woman. So, you're the one in the wrong. I'm not to blame. Michelle ignored me, always paying more attention to you and Mom. I hated that. Ken was furious with Henry's excuses. That's ridiculous. You're the one who cheated. What happened to the other woman? Well, she got pregnant. But it's not like I wanted to get her pregnant. It just happened naturally. Ken, seeing no remorse in Henry, hit him with the bat. You fool! Do you understand what it means to have a child? What have you learned in your life? Henry, crying from the hit, lashed out at Ken. Shut up! You're also to blame. Always acting so high and mighty. Always criticizing everything I do. I'm fed up. So you deceived us because you didn't want to be scolded? Yes. I planned the pregnancy dates so it wouldn't seem odd. If things had gone well, I could have pinned it all on Michelle and left her. Henry, defiant, revealed all his actions. Go ahead, hit me. I'll report it to the police. I'll even post it online. Former cop abuses son. It'll make a good story. You can't be serious. But it's true. That's how things work now. You and Mom are just outdated. Please just stop interfering in my life. Threatened with police action, Ken was unable to do anything. Even so, you're the one who lied. How are you going to explain that? Henry no longer listened to me. Mom, can you just be quiet? If you make too much noise, I'll expose it all online. But I wasn't afraid, no matter what he said. It was clear that what Henry did was unforgivable. Regardless of the era. And it was our duty as parents to teach him that. Well, then. If that's how it is. That's right. Keep quiet and I might even share some of my earnings with you. I'm making good money, you know. Henry grinned, thinking he could buy our silence with money. But that didn't matter to us anymore. Unfortunately, we're satisfied with our lives. Write whatever you want on the internet. I'm going to tell Michelle and her parents. At that, Henry suddenly panicked. He must have realized he had said too much in the heat of the moment. Wait! You can't do that! If her parents find out, it'll be a huge problem. You can't tell them. Ken, fed up, grasped the bat again. Do you really think you can get away with this? It's your fault for concocting such a poor plan. Just accept it. No! I'll write everything online. I'll say it's abuse. Try it if you dare. While Ken was dealing with Henry, I called Michelle and told her everything Henry had said. I told Michelle everything Henry had blurted out. I can't believe it. I've decided. I'm sorry to say this to you, Susie, but I'm going to divorce Henry. I'm the one who should apologize. I'm really sorry. I'll also explain everything to your parents. Then, I called Michelle's parents and told them everything that had happened. They were furious and wanted to have a meeting at my house the next day, so I agreed. When I told Ken, he took away Henry's computer and phone to prevent him from escaping. We watched him all night to make sure he didn't do anything strange. Henry tried to escape several times, but it was futile in front of Ken, a former police officer. The next morning, Michelle and her parents arrived. Michelle's mother agreed to take care of the baby, so they went to another room. Then the discussion began. I'm completely shocked. Never thought he could be such a person. I'm really sorry. We spoiled him too much since he's our only son. Anyway, Henry, explain yourself. Michelle demanded, her face showing an anger I had never seen before. Henry, too scared to meet her gaze, mumbled something inaudibly. Speak up. I can't hear you. Michelle scolded. Henry then spoke louder, explaining everything. When he got to the part about the false accusation of cuckolding, Michelle's father and she both erupted in anger. How dare you accuse our daughter of such a thing? How far will you go to disgrace her? It's unbelievable. Susie and Ken are such good people, what a shame. Faced with everyone's anger, Henry frantically ruffled his hair. Unable to lie or make excuses anymore. After all this, I can't continue our marriage. I'm divorcing you. Please sign the divorce papers right now. You'll also have to pay alimony. Michelle declared, placing the divorce papers on the table. Henry shook his head, refusing to sign. Henry! You think you can say no at this point? You brought this on yourself. Sign it! Ken yelled. Unable to resist, Henry signed under our watchful eyes. And sign this too, Michelle said, handing over a document for a generous alimony and child support. Henry reluctantly signed, but then his attitude changed completely. Don't get too happy just because I signed some papers. What are you saying now? Listen up. I'm a famous person. My work sells for a lot. I have value. If you had just obeyed me, you could have enjoyed the benefits too. Henry's outburst was unstoppable. You'll regret cutting ties with me. You'll come crawling back when you're poor and need money. I'll marry my mistress. I don't care about you anymore. With that, Henry grabbed his phone and computer and left our house. An awkward silence filled the room. I'm so sorry. How could he turn out like this? I couldn't help but cry. Even though Michelle and her parents were the real victims. But honestly, divorcing Henry is the right decision. Michelle is a wonderful person, she'll find someone better. It's not about that. But I'm really glad I met you. If it's okay with you, I'd like to maintain the same relationship as before. Michelle's kindness made me feel even more guilty. But then, her father asked us a favor. Actually, we have a request. Our place is far, and Michelle isn't fully recovered. She also has work. Could you please help take care of her and the baby? We were more than willing. Of course, don't hesitate to ask us for anything. We'll treat Michelle like our own daughter. Everyone laughed, relieving the tension. Michelle's mother and the baby came into the living room. We spent time talking about the baby and enjoying their company. If only Henry realized that happiness isn't about money. He's such a fool. Actually, we were the ones who had been helping him get work. I didn't know that. Yes, but we'll stop that now. He won't be able to work as he used to. Michelle's father's words turned out to be true. Without their help, Henry's work opportunities plummeted. But he was too proud to ask us for help. He went on to marry his mistress and had a grand wedding. However, the divorce and his dealings got leaked online, and he faced a huge backlash. When I saw it on the news, I asked Henry if he was okay. He blamed us for the leak and cut ties with us. It didn't end there. It turned out the child of his mistress wasn't his. It was probably thought that sticking with Henry, who earned a lot of money, would be safe. Ironically, he ended up being cuckolded. Henry's work, once highly regarded, was no longer valued, and his contracts with various companies were terminated one after the other, leaving him with a hefty amount of penalties to pay. Moreover, his careless handling of tax matters led to further reprimands, and he ended up with a massive debt. I wanted to help Henry multiple times, but Ken stopped me. I understand how you feel, but this is his trial. He needs to overcome this, or he'll just repeat the same mistakes. It was clear, though, that Ken was worried about Henry. With nowhere else to turn, Henry would come to our house, claiming his right as the grandfather of the child. However, I made the tough decision not to let him in. He then resorted to shouting outside our house, "Michelle, I was wrong. Let's make up. Let me take care of the child as his father." He was so persistent that Ken eventually had to call the police to drive him away. Thinking of the worst-case scenario, Michelle quit her job and went back to her parents' house with the baby. Henry gave up and returned to his mistress, who appeared to be quite free-spirited. But he endured, unable to make matters worse in public. In addition to that, he was living in poverty due to his debts. When Michelle learned that Henry wasn't coming around anymore, she started visiting us with the baby, enjoying gardening and cooking together. We grew even closer to Michelle's parents and now often go on trips together. We're looking forward to visiting a tourist spot on our next holiday. Despite everything that's happened, we're living very happily now.